Captain Nexos, we've detected an unauthorized entry into the atmosphere of KX 789, announced the first observer, their translucent tentacles rippling with excitement across the holographic display. Another reckless explorer about to become a statistic in our research database, Captain Nexos replied, adjusting his sensory membranes to focus on the main view screen. His crystalline exoskeleton refracted the dim light of the bridge, casting tiny rainbows on the smooth, curved walls of the research vessel, Galactic Seeker. The bridge crew, aboard the most prestigious xenobiological research vessel in the Andromeda scientific fleet, watched as a small, unmistakably human craft descended into the roaring atmosphere of what they had catalogued as the most hostile Class 12 death world ever documented. Bring up the subject's details, Nexos commanded, his voice carrying the distinct tone of someone ready to witness an entertaining disaster. Second observer Pax, her bioluminescent patches flickering with amusement, projected the information. Subject identified Marcus Chen, human male, age 32 Earth years. Professional designation survival expert. She paused, her upper appendages twitching in laughter by her species standards, because apparently humans think dying creatively qualifies as a career. How long do you estimate this one will last? Nexos asked, clicking in anticipation. Science Officer Cree, the resident expert on death world phenomena, calculated quickly through their neural interface. Given the planet's conditions, surface temperatures fluctuating by 60 degrees, atmospheric toxicity at 89%, and predators that make our military drones look like cleaning bots, I'd give him 6 hours. Generously. The bridge erupted in chirps and clicks of amusement. They had witnessed countless attempts to brave KX 789, none lasting more than 2 planetary rotations. The last research team from the Relian Science Academy had survived precisely 43 minutes before their environmental suits melted. Should we prepare the standard death notification package for his next of kin? Asked third observer Zen, already pulling up templates. Hold off until his demise is confirmed, Nexos replied, settling into his observation pod. But do start the betting pool. Standard rules closest estimate to the actual survival time gets first pick of salvage rights. The crew watched as Marcus Chen's ship executed a flawless landing in a valley surrounded by razor-sharp crystal formations. The human emerged, clad in what, to them, appeared to be laughably inadequate protective gear. His environmental suit seemed no more advanced than their species' maintenance gear. Look at that, Pax commented, her bioluminescence flickering with mirth. No radiation shield. Those crystals will roast him from the inside out within an hour. Recording commenced, Trell announced. This will make an excellent addition to our How Not to Survive documentation. Captain Nexos stretched his sensory stalks for a better view. At least this one should be entertaining. Begin official observation log. Human subject Marcus Chen, demonstrating typical human overconfidence in the face of certain death, has landed on KX 789. Expected expiration before the local sun reaches its apex. None of the crew noticed Marcus Chen's slight smile as he began unloading his equipment with practiced precision. How could they have guessed that humans had a saying about being underestimated? For the record. Science Officer Cree reported, their neural sensors pulsing with detachment. KX 789's current surface conditions are spectacularly lethal. Ground temperatures swing from -40 to 60 degrees within a single planetary rotation, and the atmosphere is a delightful blend of nitrogen dioxide, sulfuric acid, and unnamed gases. And that's just the easy part. Don't forget the wildlife. Pax chimed in, projecting footage of local fauna. The crystal stalkers we spotted last week focus light through their bodies to lethal precision. Being sliced in half by a laser is now a legitimate death cause here. Captain Nexos floated closer to the observation screen. Have we finalized the betting pool? Everything must be documented before our human demonstrates the galaxy's most elaborate self-termination attempt. The third observer Zen displayed the holographic betting board. Current odds favor death by atmospheric poisoning within 4 hours, though Lieutenant Vax bets on a crystal stalker encounter, possibly while he tries to befriend one. They watched Marcus Chen work, his calm demeanor confusing them. Despite the inhospitable environment, he marked out a perimeter, checked wind directions, and began sketching notes with a simple compass and a physical notebook. Primitive tools, Trell scoffed. Our ship's AI calculates optimal positioning in microseconds. Yes, Cree mused, a note of reluctant admiration creeping in. But what happens when the planet's magnetic storms fry all electronics? Which, by my calculations, should happen in approximately 20 minutes. As if on cue, an electromagnetic pulse swept through the valley, briefly scrambling the observation drones. When signal stabilized, the crew expected chaos. Instead, Marcus Chen continued undeterred. They leaned closer, studying the human's expression. He was smiling. The atmospheric pressure alone should be causing severe discomfort, Zen remarked. Yet he seems to be enjoying himself. Indeed, Marcus moved with confidence, taking readings and unpacking his equipment like someone preparing for a weekend project, not survival on a deadly alien world. Captain Nexos muttered, acting like this is a resort instead of the graveyard of 3 colonization attempts. The crew's amusement began to falter as Marcus efficiently set up operations. Cree adjusted the drones for high-definition recording, ensuring every moment of the spectacular failure was documented. But the human showed no signs of failure, only competence. How could the observers understand that humans, when underestimated, thrive on turning the impossible into mere preparation? His work remained entirely unaffected, as the simple mechanical tools he used performed flawlessly under conditions that rendered the crew's most advanced technology completely useless. Well, Captain Nexos said slowly, this might prove more interesting than anticipated. Zen, add a new category to the betting pool survives the first day through sheer dumb luck. I'm feeling generous -10 to 1 odds. No one noticed Marcus had already begun constructing what appeared to be the foundation of a shelter using ancient techniques predating spaceflight on Earth. As they would soon realize, sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Captain, you need to see this, Pax called, her bioluminescence pulsing urgently. The human, he's gathering the toxic crystal formations, the ones that emit enough radiation to melt a Zarian battle tank. Captain Nexos slithered to the observation post, his crystalline structure vibrating with disbelief. The morning sun cast long shadows over the valley as Marcus Chen, alive after 48 hours, carefully selected and harvested the deadly crystals. That's not even the strangest part, Cree interjected, their neural tendrils twitching. Our scans show he's using the radiation from those crystals to power a rudimentary heating system. He's turning certain death into an energy source. The research team, now running on minimal sleep, couldn't pull themselves away from Marcus's unorthodox survival methods. They watched as he tested local plants, consulting a simple paper notebook instead of advanced scanning tools. Look at this footage from yesterday, Trell said, projecting a hologram. It showed Marcus cautiously harvesting carnivorous vine clusters, the same ones that had dissolved their last probe. Instead of avoiding them, Marcus wore his basic protective suit and processed the vines using a mechanical press, extracting their acidic properties. He's using the acid to dissolve mineral deposits in the soil, Cree explained, their tone betraying both confusion and respect. The treated soil becomes fertile enough to grow emergency food plants. It's absurd. Ridiculous, Nexos muttered, though with more amazement than skepticism. Our betting pool is in shambles. No one predicted turns deadly materials into survival resources as an outcome. Sir Zen suddenly interrupted, appendages waving in alarm. Atmospheric readings show a Class 5 storm approaching, winds reaching 300 kilometers per hour, toxic rain and... Oh no! The crew watched in horror as the sky darkened to an ominous purple-black hue. Crystal storms, the deadliest weather event on KX 789, carried microscopic shards through supersonic winds, capable of slicing through standard emergency shelters like paper. This has to be it, Pax whispered. No primitive structure could possibly withstand. She stopped mid-sentence, staring as Marcus adjusted the angles of his shelter's walls. His design used the storm itself to create protective windbreaks. "He's turning the wind against itself," Cree whispered, their neural interface frantically running simulations. The structure channels the crystal-laden winds into a vortex, deflecting the shards using their own momentum. The storm unleashed its apocalyptic fury. For 10 agonizing minutes, sensors struggled to penetrate the chaos. Finally, Trell announced, "Storm clearing," restoring visuals. To their astonishment, Marcus's shelter was not only intact but improved. The storm had fused the microscopic shards into a naturally armored surface. Marcus emerged, inspected the reinforced walls, and laughed. He jotted notes in his notebook and proceeded with his morning routine, as if surviving an impossible storm was merely another task. "I think," Captain Nexo said slowly, "we need to rethink classifying humans as just persistent death seekers." "Shall we update the official observation log?" Zen asked, still staring in disbelief. "Yes," Nexos replied. "Record that subject Marcus Chen has demonstrated." He paused, searching for the right words. "An unprecedented ability to turn lethal planetary elements into survival tools using primarily mechanical means." Sir Cree interrupted, their neural tendrils pulsing urgently. "He's not just surviving. Look at his resource collection, his construction methods he's preparing to expand." The crew fell silent, collectively processing this revelation. Centuries of scientific certainty were unraveling at the hands of one human armed with a toolbox and a notebook. "Well," Nexos finally said, his crystalline structure catching the savage planet's light, "at least no one can say our mission is boring." "Zen, start a new betting pool." "On his survival time?" Sir Zen asked. "No," Nexos replied. "On how long it takes him to build a second shelter and turn it into a vacation home." "By the cosmic archives," Cree murmured, neural sensors overloaded with data. "This human approaches survival like a puzzle where every piece is trying to kill him." By day 5, Marcus's shelter had evolved into what could only be described as an engineering marvel, a feat of madness and ingenuity. Off-duty crew members crowded the observation deck, eager to witness his progress. "Notice his use of crystalline ore packs," pointed out, projecting a detailed analysis. "He's arranging it in a lattice pattern. By our principles, it shouldn't work. But it's stronger than our advanced composites." They watched as Marcus layered toxic vines between sheets of processed crystal. "Our engineers spent decades trying to neutralize those vines and lost 2 stations in the process," Cree said. "And he's weaving them like fabric." "The acid from the vines," Cree explained, "reacted with the crystal to form a natural polymer flexible yet stronger than steel. He's making his shelter grow stronger using materials that should destroy it." As the midday heat bore down, Marcus worked with unrelenting efficiency, turning his survival efforts into an art form. Observing his surroundings and adapting successful elements into the larger structure, Marcus worked methodically. "Compare this to our last outpost attempt on KX 789, Trell remarked, displaying historical footage. 300 engineers, the galaxy's most advanced construction drones, and 15 billion credits in resources survived only 6 days before catastrophic structural failure." The crew winced at the memory. That settlement had been hailed as the pinnacle of galactic engineering. Now, they watched as a lone human with rudimentary tools demonstrated exactly why it had failed. "We over-engineered everything," Zen realized, gesturing at the advanced systems aboard their own ship. "Look at his approach versus ours. We tried to combat the planet's conditions with sheer technology. He's using the planet to his advantage." Marcus had discovered that the extreme temperature swings could temper his crystal walls. Instead of filtering out the toxic atmosphere, he redirected it into specialized chambers, breaking it down into useful compounds. Even the lethal crystal stalkers, which had decimated their military-grade barriers, now avoided his shelter thanks to ingeniously arranged sonic resonators crafted from hollow crystal formations. "Speaking of handling the planet," Pax announced, Watch this, he's testing the new wall section. The crew leaned in as Marcus approached a recently constructed wall. It featured a strange web-like design composed of materials that, according to their knowledge, should violently react with one another. That's a load-bearing crystal matrix right next to acid-producing vine fibers, Cree said, their voice tinged with professional horror. The chemical reaction alone should. Marcus struck the wall with his hammer. Instead of collapsing, the structure rang like a bell, the vibrations rippling through the webbing in a mesmerizing pattern. The crystal flexed, the vines stretched, and the entire section absorbed and redistributed the impact. Impossible, Nexos whispered. Our top-tier shock absorption systems can't achieve that, and he built it using materials we classified as catastrophically unstable. Sertrell called out. Atmospheric readings indicate he's created a microclimate around the shelter. The toxic air is being naturally filtered by the crystal vine matrix. He's not just surviving the atmosphere, he's transforming it. The observation deck erupted into excited murmurs and flashes of bioluminescent communication. Generations of scientific doctrine about death world survival were being overturned by what appeared to be little more than clever improvisation. Look at this latest addition, Zen said, zooming in on a new feature. He's incorporated sonic-sensitive crystal growths into the wall structure, those fragile ones that shatter at specific frequencies. The crew watched as Marcus installed what looked like wind chimes made from crystal shards. As the violent winds howled through them, they produced harmonic tones that resonated with the shelter. The vibrations are reinforcing the molecular bonds, Cree realized, neural sensors processing the data. The stronger the wind, the stronger the shelter becomes. He's turned it into a self-reinforcing system. Captain Nexos shifted uncomfortably, his crystalline structure refracting the light of the turbulent planet below. Update the official record. Note that human survival techniques seem to operate on principles we've deemed scientifically impossible. And perhaps, he added, our definition of impossible needs reconsideration. Sir Pax interrupted, her bioluminescence flickering anxiously. He's looking up at us. The crew froze as Marcus Chen, standing atop his nearly completed shelter, waved casually at the observation vessel. He had known they were watching all along. Then, in a gesture that would be dissected in xenobiological conferences for centuries, he pointed at his shelter, gave a thumbs up, and resumed his work. Did he just? Trell began. Yes, Nexos replied, his voice carrying a note of admiration. He just critiqued our entire approach to death world colonization with a single hand gesture. Add that to the record. And please, he added, tell me we're documenting his construction techniques in sufficient detail to revolutionize our engineering protocols. Already on it, Cree confirmed, though they added, understanding his methods and replicating them are entirely different challenges. Sometimes I think he's negotiating with the laws of physics and somehow he's winning. Seismic activity detected, Trell announced, their voice cutting through the chatter. The planet's crust is destabilizing. This goes beyond any recorded phenomenon. The crew stared in stunned silence as colossal crystal spires erupted around Marcus's shelter. The ground cracked open, spewing geysers of toxic gas. The sky turned a sickly green as atmospheric compounds began to degrade. By the void, Nexos breathed, his crystalline form dimming. The planet is entering a catastrophic transformation cycle. Even our most durable emergency pods wouldn't survive this. Should we intervene? Pax asked, her bioluminescence pulsing nervously. Our rescue protocols. Wait, Cree interrupted, their neural tendrils twitching. Look at his readings, his heart rate hasn't spiked. He's smiling. The crew watched in awe as Marcus surveyed the unfolding cataclysm with calm, professional interest. He sketched in his notebook, whistling as he worked. Is he using the catastrophe as a resource? Zen asked, incredulous. Marcus was already adapting. Toxic geysers were funneled through crystalline tubes, driving turbines crafted from salvaged parts. Rising crystal spires were seamlessly integrated into his shelter as natural supports. The atmospheric breakdown is reaching critical levels, Trell reported. No filtration system could possibly. What is he doing now? They observed as Marcus constructed what resembled a massive wind instrument from hollow crystals. As the toxic winds screamed through it, the instrument emitted precise frequencies that neutralized dangerous atmospheric compounds, forming a protective layer against radiation. He's playing the atmosphere, Cree whispered, like a musical instrument. Captain Pax urged, protocols dictate we must offer evacuation during extinction-level events. And how Nexos replied, his tone laced with dry admiration, would we explain to our superiors that we interrupted a human turning an extinction-level event into a home improvement project? The debate was abruptly interrupted by a startling development. Marcus had begun harvesting the newly emerged crystal spires, using their natural energy-conducting properties to construct what appeared to be a primitive but effective planetary stabilization grid. Impossible, Cree muttered, their neural interface overwhelmed by the data. He's using the planet's own destructive forces to stabilize it. The crystal network is redirecting seismic energy, creating a feedback loop that's actually calming the tectonic activity. The crew watched in stunned silence as the catastrophic chaos subsided. Where destruction had reigned, there was now an almost savage harmony. Toxic geysers provided power, the crystal spires reinforced the shelter, and the altered atmosphere formed a stable microenvironment. Final readings are in, Trell announced. The area around his shelter is now more habitable than it was before the catastrophe. He's improved his living conditions by surviving an extinction event. Marcus, standing at the doorway of his now enhanced shelter, dusted off his hands. He looked up at their ship, gave them a casual salute, and stepped inside, presumably for a well-earned rest. Update the record, Captain Nexos commanded, his tone a mixture of disbelief and reluctant admiration. Note that subject Marcus Chen has demonstrated the unique human ability to treat planetary catastrophes as home renovation projects. Should we maintain rescue protocols? Zen asked hesitantly. At this point, Nexos replied, watching as Marcus's shelter emitted a sustainable glow powered by the planet's once lethal forces. I'm not sure who would be rescuing whom. The research team fell into contemplative silence, their instruments recording data that would take xenobiologists decades to comprehend. What began as a study of survival against impossible odds had become something far greater, a demonstration of turning the impossible into inconvenient, and the inconvenient into useful. One thing certain, Cree noted, their neural system still processing the scene. We're going to need a new classification system. Deathworlder doesn't seem to fit anymore. Catastrophe enthusiast Pax suggested, her bioluminescence flickering wryly. Final report subject Marcus Chen, day 30 of observation, planet KX 789. Captain Nexos dictated into the recorder, his crystalline form reflecting the light of the now transformed valley below. To say our initial assessment was incorrect is akin to describing a supernova as merely bright. The observation deck, now dubbed the Human Understanding Center, had its walls covered in detailed analyses of Marcus's survival techniques. Pax hovered near the main display, compiling the final data. In just 30 days, she reported, the subject has not only survived but established what our xenical standards classify as a highly sustainable habitat. Personally, I'd call it smugly sustainable, given how often he waves at us while enjoying coffee on his vine garden patio. The betting pool is officially closed, Zen added, pulling up the final results. No one won, because no one bet on transforms Deathworld into vacation resort. The closest guess was Lieutenant Vax's goes mad and declares himself ruler of the planet, which, technically, isn't entirely wrong. Science Officer Krie's neural tendrils twitched as they processed the implications. Our entire approach to hostile planet colonization has been fundamentally flawed. We've been trying to impose our will on deadly environments, but humans treat them as suggestions. Remember day 25, Trell asked, pulling up footage of a pack of crystal stalkers returning. The crew chuckled as the memory resurfaced. The once deadly predators now routinely passed by Marcus's shelter, which he had transformed into what he called a nice walking trail, complete with benches made of processed crystal. Our official recommendation to the Galactic Science Council, Captain Nexos continued, is an immediate overhaul of our species classification system. Humans are not merely persistent or adaptable, they are, as we've observed, catastrophically innovative. Their response to near certain death appears to be. He paused to consult Marcus's logbook. This looks like a fun challenge. Don't forget the property values Pax added. The area around his shelter has been classified as prime real estate by 3 separate colonization assessors. He's increased the market value of a death world. The final images showed Marcus's settlement, which had evolved from a basic shelter into an elegant, harmonious structure. Toxic gases powered atmospheric processors, crystal formations purified energy, and acid rains were harvested for garden pH balancing, as Marcus called it. Last item for the record, Zen announced, bringing up new scans. 2 more human ships have entered the system. They appear to be responding to vacation home reviews that Subject Chen posted on their information networks. Captain Nexos's crystalline form shimmered, a telltale sign of suppressed laughter. Final note: when encountering a human on a death world, the appropriate response is no longer, "How long until they die?" It's, "How long until they build a hot tub?" Speaking of which, Kree interjected, "Thermal scans confirm he's built one. It's powered by geothermal vents we previously classified as instantly lethal." The crew gathered at the observation window for one last look. Below, Marcus stood outside his transformed shelter, surveying his domain. The once lethal world that had claimed so many advanced expeditions now practically sparkled with habitability. He looked up at their ship, pulled out a chair, and raised a glass in their direction, as though to toast their bewildered awe. End of official report. Captain Nexos concluded, adding with a wry tone, "Personal addendum: next time we encounter humans, let's skip the survival analysis and move straight to real estate development proposals. It'll save us all some time."